Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Before I introduce our panelists, I would like you to answer simple questions for them to know how they could, best shape their responses to you. Can you please let us know in which medical area you work in? Just in a couple, if you can just answer this question in a poll, that would be great. In which medical area do you work in? And then why you're on, okay, good. Well, okay, then I think that our panelists present on this stage could know how they will best shape their answers for you. Thank you very much. So, on this panel, entitled MDR Check Approval of 3D Printed Products and Their Market Access, we have on stage Dr. Erik here, Boelen, a consultant medical 3D printing at Case3D. In the middle, we have Alberto Bardají, the Quixano, orthopedic implant product specialist at TubeSuit. And then right on my left, we have Bernhard Pultar, CEO and co-founder of Pultar Aging. So my first question will be for Dr. Erik. What is the difference between patient-matched and custom-made devices?
Oh, you're getting right into it. I think custom-made devices, that was introduced already before the MDR and the MDD. And it's a device, a medical device that you can only make for an individual patient based on the prescription of a healthcare professional, yes, under his responsibility with certain design parameters. And then the concept of patient-matched is actually introduced to us by the IMDRF guidance at some point, where they made a further distinction. They say, okay, not everything is custom-made, because custom-made is really unique for a certain patient. Patient match is something that you also adapt to the needs of the patient, but it's within a certain design envelope, within limits that can be controlled within certain minus and maximum values, and that you can produce through a validated process. Where they also say that the responsibility then shifts to the manufacturer of the device rather than stays with the physician. So I think it was an attempt to also shift the responsibility away from the healthcare physician. And they said that what first used to be custom-made is now majority patient-matched, and there's still a little bit of devices custom-made, which are really intended for the use of patients who, well, there's just no alternative available.
Yeah, I see. And before jumping into other very deep topics, I would like you, maybe Bernhard, to clarify what a medical device is and what type of medical devices, can we produce, probably using additive manufacturing.
Maybe I will shorten this answer to the point of care, because otherwise it will be too long, the answer. Okay. But if you speak about point of care, what we saw in the last 2 days, so if we have a device which should be intended for the use in an OR, in a sterile surrounding, then you have to have a completely the device itself. And the device itself has to be produced and designed on a risk-based approach regarding Annex 1 of the MDR. And then you have to know how to clean and sterilize it before bringing it to the OR. So you have to have an instruction for use. And this process has to be validated as well.
Okay.
And then, finally, you do the sterilization within a pouch. So you have to have a packaging, and this all makes a device. Yes. So you cannot just say, I print something out, I have a printer, I have a resin, I say it's biocomp, and then I have a medical device.
Okay.
No, a medical device is a complete package.
Yeah.
So you cannot pick something out. I have no instruction for use how to sterilize it. You don't have a device then, especially if you want to use it in the OR. If you just have an anatomical model, let's say that the surgeon shows a patient, okay, this is your anatomy, you don't have to sterilize it. Yes. But if you want to go into an OR, you have to have a full package.
Okay, good, thanks.
But I think even the anatomical model is a medical device.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because people say, yeah, I will not ever use it in the OR, but then you see the pictures and they are, hey, this is the anatomical model. So, and this is why I say always have a complete validation also for the anatomical models, because then in any case you can use it, because then you have a process and you don't have to check, will I use it in or outside the OR? Because you do it once and then forever.
Yeah, I like when panelists do not always have the same point of view. It's really good. So Alberto, I will maybe ask you just to give you a little bit of context into this topic. Can you share just a little bit about the regulations that might come into play at this level?
Mm-hmm. So, of course, the regulation that we're working with is the new MDR.
Yes.
We used to work with the MDD, with the medical device directives. Now we shift to the regulation.
Yeah.
And the purpose of it all was to have an increased focus in safety and performance. And I think we achieved that. So that is somehow accomplished by the MDR, which is good. I think we're on the right path. But I think we're all aware that there are some practicalities of the regulation that still need clarification on how to be implemented. There are also some gray areas, and that can be reflected, for example, in the number of MDCG guidelines that have been published since the MDR was released. I think we're getting there. I think we're doing a tremendous work together with the manufacturers and the notified bodies of learning by doing. But I also think that there are other valuable efforts, like being present in MDCG work groups or task forces. Also, the efforts to align between notified bodies as part of the team notified body position papers or discussion groups. And I think that's somehow helping to settle in the MDR.
Yes.
So it's not an easy transition, but I think we're getting there. And I think the message I would like to emphasize is that it's a travel that we're doing together, notified bodies and manufacturers. So we all have the same purpose, to deliver safe and effective treatments and products to the market. So I like to see the collaboration between the notified body and the manufacturers as a partnership.
Yes. Just to clarify something, in case we have in the audience people who are coming from other countries, is this regulation tied to Germany especially, or are we talking about, a regulation that could actually be, related to all European countries?
So that's a good question. It's a regulation that's European-wide, so it's coming from the Commission, and it's covering all the European countries. It must be said that for certain international regulations, having a certificate proving compliance with the MDR may open the doors or may facilitate that certification process. But it's European-wide. There may be specific requirements for some countries, mostly related to how the local competent authority interprets the regulation, and maybe related to registration reasons, or language on the information provided to the patient, things like that. But there are subtle differences. All in all, it's a European-wide regulation. I also would like to be optimistic in that we see, especially for additive manufacturing and for applications of additive manufacturing technologies like custom-made or patient-matched, we see a convergence, or we see the same path being followed by, for example, the US regulations and some others. So we see some kind of alignment between the MDCG 2021-3 and with the FDA guidance on medical devices manufactured by additive manufacturing techniques. And we also do not see major differences with, for example, guidances issued by the Australian authority. There's also some efforts from the IMDRF to publish some guidances, which we see they are aligned as well. And we can also see that in the fact that there are standardization committees that are now coming together between ISO and ASTM to release standards related to additive manufacturing. So we're kind of converging into the same direction, and I think that's positive.
Okay, good.
If I may, you ask, it's indeed a European law, but indeed some countries have specific distinctions. If you take Belgium, for example, if you specifically look at point of care, in Belgium, a point of care facility cannot make an implantable device.
Yeah.
So they made it a little bit more strict than in the European regulation.
Yeah. Bernhard mentioned it, but Erik, can you please remind me what we call a point of care solution, and if the different the different devices that should benefit from a quality check process and others that do not?
Well, I think the MDR speaks about an in-house manufactured device where it's made within the health institution, and it also says that the MDR does not apply, more or less, except for Annex 1, which is the general safety and performance requirements, providing that some conditions are met, and some of these conditions are it has to stay within the health institutes. You can't give it to other hospitals. Yeah. You have to do it under an appropriate quality management system. So these kind of restrictions are there, but it gives also quite a lot of freedom, I would say.
But maybe I might jump in. So Annex 1 brings, in the end, MDR back into the hospital.
Yeah,
so
correct.
If you look at evidence and risk-based evidence, there is no difference between CE-marked device and in-house. If you look at the regulations, you don't have to do a certification, but on the evidence level, you have to have the same level, because it's not possible that you can do shortcuts in the hospital and say, we are in a hospital, we don't have to do cleaning validation, whatever. So you have to have the same level.
Yeah, correct.
And it's also more important for our industry. If we do shortcuts and something will happen and we have bad media, then we have a bad press and everything is dead. And also on the ethical side, you cannot provide a device where you cannot say, hey, this has the same quality level than an international standard.
Yeah. I can see that my questions are a little bit different from the audience. I would like to pause for a minute and then try to, read the questions from the audience, because they are well in line with what you're saying right now. And the first one, read, the MDR states we need to provide traceability on printed part depending on your classification. How do we trace inks used in the MGF process? And for those who do not know, MGF is a multi-jet fusion process developed by HP. So one question, Alberto, do you want to go on?
So my take on it would be that, of course, you cannot mark the inks themselves, but they should be controlled through batch control. So whoever or whatever patient uses a device that's manufactured through MGF and uses a certain ink, if something goes wrong, the institution or the manufacturer should be able to trace back and find out what batch of ink was used. And that's usually controlled through the manufacturing record file or any other records that are held in order to be able to unwind all the way to the raw material.
All right. Erik, I feel like you have a point of view here.
No, I fully agree. I mean, it has to be traceable from start to finish.
Okay.
So indeed, when something goes wrong, you need to retrace your steps and see where did the ink come from.
Yeah, and especially you cannot just really, like I said before, just say, okay, I have a biocompatible material and a printer and do whatever I want. So we have to test it on the finished processed device. So how is my cleaning? How is my sterilization process, post-processing? Because, in terms of when we're using photopolymers, they are toxic if they're not completely cured. So it's nothing we can underestimate. So we have to do this. And therefore, we have to hold the traceability over the full process chain.
Yeah. And then the next question, I like it. I don't know who asked it, but I like that question. I heard people say MDR will kill innovation in EU. Do you agree?
It's not will, it's killed already.
Yeah.
Well, as I mentioned before, there are some challenges. That's something that cannot be denied. But still, I think there's some room for pragmatism. So still being compliant with the regulation, I think things can be done in a way that we can still get safe products to the market in a decent market access time, and that they do not get blocked for any other reason other than the fact that they may not be safe and effective. So I think we need to focus on safety and effectiveness, try to stay compliant with the MDR, but try to stay pragmatic as well, and keep in mind that the most important is matching the needs of the patients. So I think there's room to toggle, but of course some things will need to be rethinked Some things are in the regulation and are not yet set up, and the way they are set up will have a massive impact on whether we can move forward in an agile way or whether it will be like a stone on the way.
Yeah, you can still innovate. It just takes longer before you get to a patient. And that's the barrier that the MDR created. But indeed, as Alberto says, the purpose of the MDR is to make devices safe and effective. So we need to be very sure that what goes into a patient is actually okay. Not because it's innovative, but because it's safe and it works.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that especially the industry, they have to learn how to work with the MDR, because now, in my experience, the industry, they invest a lot in like clinical science, whatever. R&D is not that much budgeted than before, and you know they are trying to figure out the storyline, how to document the existing products and even the new ones. So I think there will be several years until we get an aligned meaning of what to do with these MDR requirements.
Yes. And then before we move to that questions on resin and 3D printed manufacturers, I would like to ask Alberto, what type of tests are required to qualify medical 3D printed products?
Thank you for that question, because it's a recurring one that we often hear. So the validation requirements are defined by the intended purpose, not by the manufacturing technique. So that's the first thing. So if a traditionally manufactured component requires a certain amount of stress to be withstood in order to be safe, then an additive manufactured part will require the same pass or fail criteria. So that's the first thing. The final verification and validation tests are just the same for every type of device. But some specific considerations shall be made for additive manufactured components, and I think that has a lot to do with variability of the testing results, and that's in the nature of the manufacturing process. So it's a process that has a lot of advantages, as we know, but also has a lot of parameters that may vary. And I think in order to ensure repeatable test results, the process needs to be controlled very accurately. There are things that take into part, like chamber temperature, position in the build area, cooling time and temperature, other parameters. Post-processing is key as well, and also cleaning. So I think the focus is not that much on the end or the final part testing, but in the control and validation of the process. And with regards to that, I would like to say that there are already some standards available that are not specific to medical devices, but can come really handy for manufacturers to ensure a reliable and repeatable process. I'm thinking of the ISO 529 series, including ISO 52920, 10 and 11, which gives like general guidelines on how to manufacture and design additive manufactured components. But there are also some ASTM standards that talk specifically about raw material specifications, and they also provide some guidances for testing mechanical properties of additive manufactured components. So I see that as a useful tool for validating the process or for in-process controls, and it's something that should not be kept off-site. Specifically to medical devices, we have ASTM 3335, which talks about removal of powder residues for powder bed fusion manufactured medical devices, which I think is rather important, especially for implantable devices, and it's one that manufacturers can keep in mind. Again, the guidances, even if they are not specific to Europe, I think they are useful as well, and they are a good setting stone for a manufacturing process to be manufactured adequately and for a quality management system to address the challenges of additive manufacturing. I'm thinking, for example, of the FDA guidance for additive manufacturing of medical devices. That's not of applicability in the EU, but it's a useful framework to set the process.
Yeah, I think we have to realize that 3D printing is unique in the sense that while you're making the shape of the device, you're also changing the material. You go from a raw material to a processed material, which is quite different from CNC milling, for example, where you start with a very defined material, you chip away, and then your end product is the same material as you started from.
Yeah.
But in printing, you have process parameters, as Alberto said, and you're just changing the material as you're also building your part.
Yes.
And that is something you have to be in strict control of, and you have to validate that your process delivers consequently the same output.
Yes. Bernhard, would you maybe emphasize on the reason why quality management is crucial in this process?
Yeah, without a quality management, you cannot trace anything. So,
yes.
Because the thing is, after you finish the production of the product,
yes.
do you know, okay, who did it? Was the person trained? What facility did you use? What printer? What was the batch? Was it controlled? So if you don't have this evidence, okay, then you don't have anything. So if it's not documented, it's not done. It's not there. So you need to have it. It's not an option.
Yeah. So let's move to a couple of questions from the audience again. How can resin and 3D printer manufacturers help medical device manufacturers get through regulatory frameworks? And this is a question. Yeah,
maybe
Bernhard.
I can do it from the industry side.
Yes.
Usually, what they do if they get a resin or the printer, they qualify the printer by themselves. Together with them, do an IQ, OQ, PQ, and for the resin, they have to build their own biocompatibility study on the final device. They can base on some testing what was performed by the manufacturer, so for a resin manufacturer. But they have to do it in collaboration. If they don't get the data from them, they have to start by zero. So you cannot just say I have a certified material if you don't get insights into what did they test. You cannot build up based on that, so you have to start from zero.
Yeah.
And so this is the thing, if you get some data exchange from the resin manufacturer, then it's much more easier for the medical device manufacturers maybe to shorten a little bit the biocompatibility testing, because this is a lot of time and money consuming part of the development.
Yeah, correct. Well, you just spoke about the shortcut. If a medical device is produced and used at point of care, what is the thought behind that? Why medical device regulations makes it easier for point of care?
I don't have to go to him.
Point of care.
That's it.
So point of care manufacturing would usually fall under Article 5.5 if it covers certain conditions. And I guess that's the short answer. But still, as Erik and Bernhard were saying before, there still needs to be a technical documentation maintained in order for the competent authorities to review it if they require it, or if something goes wrong. And there still needs to be a quality management system implemented.
Yes.
And I think this is one of the key aspects. So the quality management system is a tool to ensure safety, and it still needs to be there. The impact is on the conformity assessment route, which may be submitted to the notified body. But the principles for ensuring the safety of the product are essentially very similar.
Okay. And I feel like the next question is still for you, because it still touches upon regulation. Dental alloys and resins are CE marked by the industry. Why is this not possible for all the material? MDCG states intermediates can be CE marked.
So that's a good question. So with dental materials, we have a lot of products that are semi-finished and that they are somehow customized in different steps, sometimes in the lab. And I guess that this product is in a state where the responsible manufacturer for the product needs to ensure that the product has certain mechanical properties. And that's why. Why is it not possible for other materials? I do not see a reason why it should not be possible. So if there's a specific example, maybe we can discuss, but in general, this should be the possibility. For orthopedics, for example, we have, it's not the same case, but we have adjustable products that are delivered in a form to the OR, and then they are adjusted by the surgeon internally through different instrumentations, and those are CE marked as well. It's not quite the same example, but it is possible to deliver a product that is not in the final form and it is still CE marked. So I do not see any stoppers or any stops for that, to be honest.
And I have to say, what always is the joke in the medical device industry to say, there's medical device industry and there's dental.
Yeah, I often hear that.
In the end, your question cannot be answered because in the end it's a political decision.
Yeah, but I would like to hear Erik on this.
Yeah, well, I usually think it's a bit misleading. You have a bottle of resin, which is inherently toxic, and it says it's a CE marked class 1 or 2A device, which I think deserves a little bit more explanation towards the user, because the resin is not a biocompatible material. Only if you follow the processing steps in the right way, you can get to a biocompatible material.
Well, I'm pretty sure the next question, is a very big topic for this industry, not only the medical devices itself. Seems like medical devices classification and reimbursement are some big challenges in point-of-care units. Which do you think will be the best approach to overcome them?
I may. So we start in Basel and Salzburg to implement cranial implant production or in the point of care. And the feedback, what you get also from the surgeons, from the hospital, and also it attracts the patients because they don't want to have these Paracos PMMA implants anymore, with a high infection rate. They see, hey, this is nice, this is sexy. So I go there. So it could be is an attraction for them. And I think, we have to discuss with the insurance companies, but I think we have to build up the pressure from the bottom. So if we have this, and then there's no question about will you pay it or not. So nowadays in Switzerland, for example, they have to ask the insurances after the case, hey, can you reimburse it, yes or no? And this is quite a pain. But I think in the coming years, in the following years, this will be solved because there is a need. And if there is a need and if there is innovation, there will be a solution, I'm sure.
So I agree with your comments regarding reimbursement, and I would also like to add regarding classification. So of course, from the notified body standpoint, we do not consult, but if a manufacturer or a hospital that's doing point of care manufacturing applies for a specific conformity route or for a specific certification, we can say if that conformity route is in line with the classification they have assigned to that product, and whether we can follow that classification. So that's something that we could potentially help with.
Yes. And then before moving to the next question, I think that my question is quite maybe in line with that, with the next question. Who holds the responsibility for medical 3D printed devices, Alberto? The manufacturer or the surgeon?
So Erik already gave an insight on this topic, and I think it really comes down to whether it's a custom-made device or if it's a patient-matched. So there are like 4 points to consider between patient-matched and custom-made devices. One is whether it's been produced through mass production methods. I think that does not apply for additive manufactured devices because 3D printing can be used for off-the-shelf or serial manufacturing and for custom-made. Then there's consideration on whether the surgeon has issued a written prescription for the device, but still the device can be either patient-matched or custom-made. But then there is the topic on who holds the responsibility. In the case of the custom-made implant, the responsibility would lie on the surgeon. And in the case of the patient-matched implant, it would lie on the manufacturer. And that really comes down to how the process has been set up, and whether the manufacturer has a validated envelope of possible designs where the surgeon can choose. He can choose, okay, talking about, for example, a plate. I want a plate with certain screws with such angulation, and I want it to match in the extremes the anatomy of the patient. But the manufacturer has a range of possibilities of maximum and minimum angles, maximum and minimum number of holes, where he knows that design envelope is safe and he can offer that to the surgeon. So patient-matched responsibility lies on the manufacturer, custom-made, it lies on the surgeon.
Okay, very quickly we are going to try to answer the last two questions. With increasing number of 3D print labs at the hospitals worldwide, what efforts are needed from the hospital sides to be MDR compliant? Maybe, Erik, do you want to share a little bit of your experience here?
Yeah, well, so the hospitals are all looking now at Article 5.5, which is the exemption that they have to follow. I think they're all struggling with setting up a quality management system.
Yeah, correct.
And I think there's also this discrepancy with industry. I think medical device industry is actually quite used to working under these kind of quality management systems, whereas for hospitals it's quite new. They have a quality system high level in the hospital, but not specifically for the 3D lab. And then I think the guidance speaks about, or no, the MDR itself speaks about appropriate quality management systems. So yeah, then how do you judge what is appropriate? I think one suggestion would be to look at Article 10.9, which lists some basic components that a QMS should have.
Thank you very much. And then, if a software is FDA approved, what impact do you think that this has on the end product? Bernhard,
nothing.
No.
Because the thing is with the FDA, what does it mean? You know, a lot of people speak about we have a certified software, but the question is, what does it mean? If you have a special indication, you need to know on what was the validation parameter they did.
Yes.
Because you have to know, am I still within these parameters, yes or no? And the same with the biocomp of a resin. If you don't get this information, what do you do with the certificate?
Yes.
In the end, it's, sorry to say, it's just a paper on the wall, but if you don't get the information from a software provider and can work with them together to understand what are the limits, then it's not useful.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we need to be aware that just using certified software and certified materials doesn't absolve you from doing any kind of validation. You still have to validate your process start to end.
I agree.
Thank you very much.